And I was moved by it, So I went to the head nun. I said, hey, what was this kid's name? Who was he? Where'd he come from? And I will never forget. He says, you know what? You know as much about this kid as I do. And I was like, wow. Because you hear the stats of all these kids dying of starvation, all this stuff every day. But I was like, wow, there's some of these cats that are dying and no one knows their name. So he would be put in the morgue in a bag, incinerated that day, and then done away with. Is mom still looking for him? Bro still looking for him? Who knows? Do die without a name. And it just shocked me. It was a bad day. And I went back to the hospital we were staying at, and I came across the story of the rich man and Lazarus. And in the story of the rich man and Lazarus, we all know it's in Luke 16. And what it is you have Lazarus, the beggar, outside the front gate, longing for the food off the table, And you had a rich man who's dressed in purple and fine linen and all this stuff, and he was doing fine. Well, in the story, they both die. But what was interesting is the rich man ends up in hell, but he doesn't have a name. Unless it was rich, but context, I don't think it was rich. And so he ends up in hell longing for water off the beggar's tongue. But yet here it was the beggar who's known by God. It was known. And I looked at that story and I looked at, the rich man, and he was a religious guy, because the mere fact that he said Father Abraham, and in the story at the time, people would have been shocked, the mere fact that, this obviously blessed man was end up in hell. But as I looked at it, I didn't think, I don't think it's as easy as the guy went to hell because he's rich. I really don't think that. In 1 John 3:16, it says, if you have material possessions and see a brother or sister in need and aren't moved by compassion, how can the love of God be in you? I think that is why he ended up in hell, because he wasn't moved by compassion. Now, maybe on Thanksgiving or Christmas time, he was moved a little bit. I got to do my alms because I'm a good Christian, I'm a good Jew. I'm going to do my alms, I do it when it's appropriate. And so he gives it at certain times. But it wasn't he didn't care about the man outside his front gate. What was his name? I don't know. But God knows him as Lazarus, And it's like, what would have happened if he would have invited him in? And would have had him sit around the table. We would practice a little hospitality and got to embrace him. And really my wife and I, kind of our motto in life now is who's sitting at our front gate, Because what if he would have answered the call at his front gate? And Mother Teresa used to say that the poor are Jesus in his distressing disguise, But yet the reality of it is there's so many distressing disguises. And so it's almost like playing hide and go seek with Jesus because, it's easy to come to a place like Philly and hang out with homeless people or go overseas to India and see this terrible, intense poverty and then come back to a place like Kentucky. I'm like, well, there ain't nothing here, There's no issues here. And I've realized, the poor are everywhere we go. The struggling are everywhere we go. There's people in need, whether it's an old lady in a home that's all by herself and no one visits, to maybe some girl who's super beautiful, but she has such a low self-esteem, been abused as a kid. Or, who knows the different faces of poverty? Who is it that's out there that's in need? Who is it that God's calling us to open our eyes to and embrace and to love? And that who's sitting at our front gate? And that's really become our motto. And when we went back to Kentucky, it was like, all right, we need to get some stuff going. And we started a little community called Lazarus Society. And it was just a few of us, a few little families that were just like, all right, let's get together and let's answer that question. Who's at our front gate? And it was awesome because one person started going to an old folks home and hanging out there and gotten to know and built some really good relationships. Somebody else was a potato chip dude, He went into the factories and filled up the potato chips boxes or whatever, And he got to know some people in the factory and began to build relationships. My wife and I, we ended up going to a shelter and started hanging out with women with babes. And it was the first time we'd ever seen that face of poverty. And we began seeing some different faces. And that's kind of a neat story. When we were in doing that, Salvation Army, we were getting ready to start the Bible study. And this lady walks in and she's like, is this a Bible study? I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, I'll come in on one condition, that no one touches me. I'm like, all right, no problem. Come on in, And she goes, I know how you Christians are, always wanting to hug people. No hugs, I'm agoraphobic, like I have this fear of people, fear of touch. So the mere fact that she came in and sat there was amazing, And so she comes in and we're just being ourselves, cracking jokes and doing some different things and doing the Bible study, this and that. We learned her story and stuff afterwards. And we just had this really neat connection that first night. And I remember everybody else had left and Lena was still sitting there. I said, hey, Lena, I said, before you go, do you mind if I give you a verbal hug? And she was like, I got it right. And she was like, and she said she felt as if God was reaching down into her and said, it's okay. And she hugged me, physical hug, that first night. Unbelievable. And then she hugged my wife, first night. And it was like, but what happened was, we didn't just feel good about ourselves and kind of let Lena off, like, wow, that was a good experience. God really reached down and did something. But no, we said, hey, come to our house. And we had dinner with her, And we had dinner with some other folks and tried to get her involved. And we took her to this church that we were a part of, which was a house church, right, called Communality. And we took her on. I remember that first night, she was scared out of her mind, like off in the corner of the porch. And people would come up, we'd introduce them, and she was just scared out of her mind. She didn't shake hands with anybody, didn't hug anybody. It was just to her. But we kept doing week after week, kept introducing her to some different folks, allowing her to be a part of our lives. She became a grandma to Alexa, who's here today, and she was there when she was born. And would you know, within 2 months, she's absolutely healed of agoraphobia. And today she doesn't have it at all. And she's like the mama of the church. You come in, you're in trouble if you don't hug her, And I think part of that is ministry isn't just about us serving and us just giving of ourselves, but it's also being open to receive the gifts of the people that are out there. Being able to receive the gifts of the poor, and also giving of ourselves. But it's always a two-way street because it's the poor have something to give to us as well. And it's with that I really see mission as a gift for us. It is limited in the sense of it's for folks 18 to 29. But it's a really neat thing because all the staff and all that, we try to live it out the best we can as well, But what it is it's really that, like, who's sitting at your front gate? Here you are in the neighborhoods. Here you are, like, love God, love your neighbor, because nothing else matters. So what does that mean? And I wanted to just share some of the basics of what the missionary community looks like. Some of it is, you come in, and I don't talk about all these rules that we have. But what I talk about, I use a different language because I used to break rules myself, and I know how to work with rebellious people, and there are always some every year, we call them patterns of life. Because to be an intentional community is just that. You have to be intentional. Communities never just happen. It isn't like, oh, we're just hanging out. Like when you're when we were at Eastern and living in the dorms, it's not intentional community. Because we may have a good time, we may hang out, we may share some things here and there. But I can put up masks. You don't know me. You don't know the real me. You don't know everything that's going on, And I can mask that. But I tell people when they come into mission, I say, you know what? The intentional community is kind of like standing in front of a mirror naked. It all hangs out, there ain't no hiding nothing, and it's like you can come in and you'll mask it up for a little bit, but then after a while, guess what? Like you have to, you begin, your stuff comes out, your good and your bad, and everybody has gifts to give to each other, but they also have a little bit of crud to give to each other too. And it's about, are you willing to like embrace that crud? Are you willing to like embrace somebody else's crud and allow that kind of rub you the wrong way and work through that intentionally? And some of the ways we do that is they have a shared spirituality. A couple things that we do. Obviously, they move into a neighborhood and they're attached pretty closely to a local congregation. And so it might be a couple of blocks down the street or whatever. And they all attend the same church and they get involved in that same church. They're part of the ministry. They don't start anything new, but they become just like lay folk, just embracing what's going on. And some may do the youth, some may do the kids, some may sing or whatever ministries they got. They also do, we have like morning devotions. And so it's a real important time for them to just kind of share. And in each house, it looks a little different. Some people may lead it, they may read some scripture together, whatever. And so, but it's a very important, like, I think in communities that pray together, stay together.